Welcome to Discover Indie Film. I'm your host, Jeff Howard, and I have, sitting in the UK right now, in fact, I didn't double check with you, Tôka. Are you in London?
Yes.
You're in London, I'm in Los Angeles, so we are talking on Zoom, and it is a pleasure to have you, Tôka.
Likewise. Yes.
And I will just tell everyone right now that you wrote and directed the film Nauru, which was a featurette. It's not as long as a feature and much longer than a short. And it was at Film Invasion Los Angeles in 2024. And it took home a few awards. I'm just going to name them because it's fun. And you totally deserve this, which is you won Best Featurette Sci-Fi, Best Screenplay for a Featurette. That's regardless of genre, by the way. Best Supporting Performer in a Featurette for, I should have double-checked everyone's names with you, but for Alessandra Vitanis.
Vitanis, yeah. All right.
And also got the Grand Jury Award for Best Cinematography. And the last award out of 5 is it got the Grand Jury Award for Best Production Design because, man, that was well deserved because it's just a visually stunning film and a lot of it is on screen. Definitely more. I already said to you before we started recording that I am a huge fan of sci-fi, always have been. I don't understand people who don't like sci-fi, but one of the wonderful things about sci-fi is there's so much world building involved.
Yes.
And in Nauru, you do not disappoint. You create such a well-defined world that, well, obviously the jury and I were all really impressed. I mean, I'm on those juries, but it's just a great film. So congratulations. If I'm being overly effusive, it's also because we didn't get a chance to talk when your film was in the festival. So I'm kind of making up for it and you know, getting to talk to you for the first time.
All right. Thank you. It is. It's a different process to write a sci-fi film because you, at least for me, you have to come up with the whole universe before you actually come up with a story that's gonna take place within that universe. So, yeah, that's what I did with Nauru. I thought of a sort of an environment which is sort of a metaphor for the social and political actual environment that we were living in Brazil and that we are living still now. And that was it. There was it's not it wasn't supposed to be a short film. It became it is a feature that actually Nauru is the short film is a concept for a feature film. So there's an actual feature film that I've written, and Nauru is sort of a sample of what the feature film will hopefully will be someday.
Yeah, and as you said, it's a metaphor, it's an allegory. There's wonderful tension in the world you create. There's indigenous vigilantes there's cultures clashing. There's technology clashing. There's certainly a class element to it, right? And the haves and have-nots. And so it's I have to say I do love, when sci-fi is just about futurism and it isn't an allegory for something in society today that's hard to talk about, right? Like people hate talking about class struggle and people are like, oh, do you have to bring up that stuff? And so it's wonderful to be able to bring that into a film like this that you've written that makes wonderful points about society and how it needs to be improved upon without feeling like a lecture.
Yes. It's so sad. I mean, I could simply have written a political social drama, but I feel like that's I feel like in Brazilian filmmaking are just overflowed with that kind of political drama. You know, it's every year we have something that is, there's based on a certain historical figure or some person who fought the dictatorship back in the 60s or something like that. I wanted to get out of this. I think we should. I think the great thing about sci-fi is to be able to create that social commentary, you know, in a more, I think, more complex and I think more deep, profound way. I mean, that's how I want to create a metaphor for what for what we are right now, and in what state, in which in what how did we get to that point in which we cannot see reality anymore? I mean, we don't, people are in dispute of narratives. Actually, from my perspective, this it's a clash of realities, between people who can articulate their subjectivity with the material world and people who can no longer do that. They cannot articulate their own subjectivity to the material reality, so they make their subjectivity sort of a tyrannic, they make their own subjectivity a tyrannic, imposive truth, and that's what goes on nowadays. People are completely disconnected. Material reality sort of diluted, and by the time I was writing Nauru, there was the whole conversation about the metaverse, and I thought, like, oh my god, that's going to get even more crazy, because now this is going to become this. It's going to be right in front of your eyes. But in a way, it is already. We're already designing our own worlds, and what you see now are a bunch of pre-designed worlds in which Nauru navigates from one place to another to try to find that particular woman, that mysterious woman who's trying to get him back to the real world, to the real post-apocalyptic scenario, post-war scenario. Because that's what I believe is gonna, that's what's gonna happen with material reality if we just dive inside our own virtual version of the world, how we like to be, and that's what Nauru is about. It's about reality. It's about being able to stay in touch with yourself, with your culture, with your reality. Don't get sucked up, by these virtual, versions, because they are very fluid, and they're in the end they have become tools for authoritarian regimes to impose because they own those technologies. They are, the government and is, we have these forces. We have governmental. We have the government. We have corporate forces. We have these forces that sort of use this technology to create certain possibilities for people to come up with their own versions of reality. But in a way, what people are actually doing is that they're getting to a corner. Social media is kind of pushing people to a certain corner in which they are being fed things that they believe, it's the truth.
It becomes the new technology is being used for propaganda and control of people.
Yes,
and getting people to turn against their own interests and
yes. In a way, it's a custom. Yeah, it's a customized, thing. It feeds you these types of content, which are actually propaganda disguised as content, and you get surrounded by that, and you get sucked towards those contents because you believe because they attract you for the things that you choose. It's a mutual kind of relation in which it's not a mutual relation. It's a relation in which gives you a fake impression that you have a power over something. I have the power to choose and to create, and you don't have power at anything. You know?
Yeah,
So it's a
exactly. And
complex subject.
people, it's funny we're on this subject now because here I wanted to dive into you as a creative person, and we will. But to add to what you're saying, yeah, people, we had so much enthusiasm 20, 30 years ago of the democratization of and the freedom of information that technology was going to bring us. And it's actually, we've learned in the last 5 to 10 years, maybe longer, that it's actually being used against us, and it's being, we now people are able to, I mean, this is kind of the desperate move, but now like flat Earth is has risen
Yeah.
again, and it's because people can be so easily distracted and misguided and shown, oh, I know something no one else knows, and
Well,
it completely distracts
yeah,
them
yeah,
from the fact that their society's crumbling around them and there's no
yeah.
social services.
Yeah,
And
here's what I think, man. I think fakeness is it got to a point where fakeness became a lifestyle. That's it. I think the what we call reality, what we call material reality, what we call science, what we call the things that we cannot change regarding, doesn't matter how many people believe in it. The things that we cannot change, they will stay, but people will create their own versions of reality, and eventually it will clash. Those things will clash with material reality, and we're going to live in a world of where these types of conflicts are going to happen and more often. Like with COVID, when there was a lot of people who didn't believe that vaccines would work, and they actually in Brazil that happened a lot. A lot of people didn't took vaccines, even though scientists were like, please, you would all of your life, and now you're not going to take a shot right now because and that's what's going to happen, and those things are going to clash, and I don't know what's going to come down to. I don't know. I think someday, some generation in the future will just, what, man, fuck this, and I don't want to do this anymore. I want to just live. It's going to completely disconnect with everything, hopefully, or not, or just gonna, or this is gonna come to something even more complex and even bigger than you know. I mean, the metaverse idea is something it's very, it's the beginning of the beginning of the beginning of something that kind of scares me, and that's what Nauru is about, and that's why it's a kind of complex film. When I show it to my friends, they didn't really get it. I was like, what? Didn't really get the story. Like, what? Why this goes to this and this goes to this? Yeah, that's a sci-fi film. So sometimes there are things you don't really get too much when you watch a sci-fi movie. Have you watched Interstellar? Have you watched the end of Interstellar? Yeah, there's something sometimes you don't really get. It's really fine, but if some of my friends, they really didn't get when they
well,
watched, but
they might
that's
not get some of the subtleties or some of the, yeah, because
yeah,
you do have a metaverse and you do have different realities in the film, but I'm sure they understand, your hero characters, and they understand the struggle, and can get
yeah, yeah.
like you also
That's
give us, you
yeah,
give us a great story.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I think they can get that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so you're honestly a very talented storyteller. So here's the question I promised you I'd ask, which is when did you first get involved and interested
Oh my
in creating? Was it film first? Was it writing first? Was there what sparked you to get into the creative arts?
Yeah, well, it started a long time ago. When I was in Brazil, I worked as a clerk for a blockbuster store. It was one of the last blockbuster stores in Rio de Janeiro. I was working there as a clerk, and
And you grew up in Brazil, yeah? Or
yeah, I grew up there. I grew up
yeah.
in Brazil. I grew up in Rio de Janeiro, and I was working there as a clerk. And one of the benefits of working at a Blockbuster store is that you get to rent 8 films a week for free. So, I was up late. I would go home with a lot of films, but a lot of films I couldn't get, the most recent films, the releases, I couldn't take home because there were always, people renting them. So the what's left for us was the oldest films. So the ones I got to take home were the most, So one day, so I started to, pick up these films, and one day I picked up Taxi Driver, and that was what clicked. That was the film that was okay. I think I haven't ever paid attention to cinema and filmmaking that way, like the way when I saw this movie, I'm like, that's so great. That's a why have never, no one ever, said anything about this film to me. No one ever, and that's just amazing film. And that's the first time I thought about making films because I thought it was so amazing. I thought Taxi Driver is such a great movie,
Right, and such a personal. It's
and
also like that's one of those films you watch and you can tell it's made by an auteur who's giving you a personal vision.
yeah, and I never seen anything like that before. I used to I would pick up the films based on what people talked about it, and most people would talk about the most recent, the most recent films, and then I started to get to older films. I saw Taxi Driver. I mean, that must be something as great as this, hidden somewhere. So I started to pick up old films, older movies, and Martin Scorsese. Okay, now I'm going to watch everything that this guy done, and then I'm going to watch everything that this director does, and just it got to a point where I had to. But I was working at Blockbuster, but I had to, rent films from another another store because the Blockbuster didn't have enough old films for me to watch, so I had to go pick them up at another store, and that's what sort of that's what happens, and I think that was the moment when I decided that I would do it, and then I applied for a scholarship in a in a university in Rio called Pontifícia Universidade Católica, and applied for film studies, and I got the scholarship, and then I started to study filmmaking.
And I assume you were probably a teenager when you were working at Blockbuster?
Yes, I wasn't exactly a teenager. I was 21 or
Oh,
something.
so just but young person.
Yeah, I was
And
young.
that's what inspired you. Then you got in. So then you got into that.
I started to study film in college. I started to study filmmaking in college, and then when I got out of college, I had to work. I had to make money, so I started to work in advertising. Started to make corporate films, institutional films, and so I started work as a freelancer for a long time before I started. Before I decided to develop my own projects. It took me a long time for me to do that. I kind of got used to a certain. I kind of got into a certain comfort zone, so to speak. And but in 2019, I decided that what, that's it. I'm done with corporate films. I'm done with advertising. Not going to do that anymore. I'm just going to do my own stuff from now on, and that's it. Nauru is my second film. My first film was a documentary, and this one is a short sci-fi. I hope the next one will be a feature. But I'm still thinking I'm still writing a short film for UK to be developing here in UK.
Well, actually, do you want to? At what point did you end up in the UK? Because I assume when you because you said that when
Yeah, so that everything happened in Brazil. Yeah, I moved to the UK last year with my wife. My wife moved here and she started work here. So we decided, to come live here together because I'm married for 8 years now So, and she works in a multinational company, and they have offices here in London. And they decided to move her from Brazil to London. And okay, we don't have any kids, and I work at home. Most of the time I'm writing. So yeah,
And always good for a creative person to move around the globe and experience other
yeah,
cultures too.
yeah.
That's a pretty great opportunity.
That's a great opportunity. Yeah,
Yeah.
and I believe I'm going to have more opportunities to make films here than I would have in Brazil right now.
Yeah, I imagine so, for sure. And I couldn't help but notice the date. So it was 2019 that you decided to stop doing
Yeah,
the comfort and focus on your own. So basically, the year before the pandemic is when you made the transition.
yes. My first film is a documentary that I shot between March and September 2020 during the pandemic. It is about the conditions, the conditions that homeless people were living in São Paulo during the pandemic. So it was sort of an invest, how do I say that in English? Pardon me. It's about it's called São Paulo Closed City, and I decided during the pandemic to investigate, the conditions because there was a lot of homeless people in São Paulo, and I thought to myself, what are they going to do now? Because everything's going to be closed. So they're actually going to be outside of, they're going to be trapped in the streets because they're not going to have anywhere to go to. They're going to have anywhere to, they do have shelters, but these shelters, they're just full. They're completely full of people. They have most of them are actually living in the streets, and they depend on businesses and commerces to be open so they can get food and get people, to give them money, and they sort of and so I decided to go there. I went there on my own. I went, just took a camera and just decided to go out there and shoot on my own, and I make that documentary. Really, I didn't really knew what I was going to come up with. I just decided to go, and shoot and see what it is. And this is when I saw this almost post-apocalyptic scenario that gave me the idea to write a science fiction film because it's so great. It was such a crazy, thing to see. Such a big city like São Paulo completely empty, and the homeless people completely, they were completely desperate. They gathered in places so they can get food because there was a car passing by. They were distributing food, so they would gather around thousands of people during the pandemic, and they would all get COVID because they would, So it was kind of a crazy scenario, and yeah, and I try to capture that for my first documentary.
And I mean, I certainly wouldn't say that you were obviously inspired by that, but you clearly had concern for the impoverished to just go do that, just to go shoot,
Yeah, yeah,
to
yeah.
go capture on film or on video the what homeless people are
Because
experiencing.
no one, yeah, because no one really thinks about it when it's during the pandemic. No one really thinks about what's going on with these people. We just assume that they're gonna, there's someone taking care of them, but there's not. They're really on their own there. They're on their own out there, and a lot of them died, and no one knew about it because they had no relatives. They have no one, and they had no statistics. No one was counting anything. No one, we don't know. So, I was looking for these numbers during the documentary, and I couldn't find these numbers anywhere. But I'm pretty sure a lot of them died, and but there was no one to go there and say, and there was nothing to measure. It was just
Yeah,
more than
there's people
6,000
who
people.
live outside of just outside of the structures of society that we track.
Completely. You just
And so yeah, when they get sick, we don't know if they pass.
no. They go to a public cemetery and they just get they're buried in a. I went to that public cemetery and they just get buried. They just bury them under a common ground, and that's it. They just kind of they sweep them under the rug.
Yeah.
Just let them just hide them. You know, that's it, and that's the reason why I went out there and try to capture as most as I could and try to understand what actually happened to them. But I couldn't really figure it out because there was no one to give me any kind of support. No one from the off from the mayor's office from nowhere. I just went there on my own and tried to get as much as information as I could and try to get their sense of what was going on from their perspective. So I talked to a lot of them.
And I assume they were eager to have someone to talk to because there's some people tend to be ignored.
Yeah, they were yeah they it's not really eager to talk to someone, but they were concerned about what was going on. They didn't really know what was going on. They they knew there's something bad's going on, but they were kind of, you know what, man, there's a lot of bad things going on. So,
Right, because
there was some,
this is a part of honestly every city has this, and these people aren't privileged to be connected to the media. They don't have technology, right? They
yeah,
don't have access. They don't have access.
they hear things. They see things on newspapers and they hear things and some people talk to them. They go to shelters, they hear things, that's it. They don't really, some of them get some orientations but there's a lot of things going on. I mean, a lot of them are alcoholics, a lot of them are suffering with other diseases and the COVID is just one more thing.
Yeah, just one more
One
thing.
more thing in their reality, and a lot of them don't even know why. How did I got sick? I don't know. Might be something like that. Might not.
And when it's and when information is just being passed from person to person as word of mouth, it's just as possible for someone to hear, oh, that vaccine is dangerous, don't touch it,
Yeah.
as they are to hear, oh, this can make what would send you to the hospital or kill you, at least you
No. Yeah.
survive it and you have a milder experience. Yeah.
Yeah.
The misinformation for that community is deadly.
Deadly. Yeah. Yeah. That happens. Yes.
Yeah. So seeing that was that
Kind
inspired the
of
world that you decided to start building.
it kind of was. It was a first trigger. It was a first trigger. Seeing that it was sort of like that's when I thought like I should write about I should write a sci-fi film. I should talk about I was planning to make a fiction film. So I thought why not? I mean we're living it.
That was something my mother in her 80s said throughout COVID. She kept saying, "I feel like we're in a sci-fi movie."
Yeah, but that's how a lot of people feel like. Right?
Yeah, like, is this really real? Are these numbers like it was so because we've never had to in the modern era grasp the idea of almost everyone on Earth being sick at the same time, like a percentage of us. It did.
Oh yeah, no, yeah.
It only happened in movies before.
It would never cross your mind like a year before that.
Yeah, we'd hear, oh, it's gonna happen someday,
It's gonna happen, yeah, and then it did,
and we would just ignore that warning, I suppose. Were you but I wanted to ask, were you a fan of sci-fi before, or you just felt that sci-fi would be the right?
No, I was a fan of sci-fi. Yeah, I'm a fan. fan of genres, not only sci-fi, but I love horror films. I love, um, I love comedies, but
Yeah, well, I mean, technically,
it,
your experience at Blockbuster really was sort of like uh, introduction to film, in that like film
it was
history.
an
I mean,
introduction.
I guess you probably hear the Tarantino reference a lot, but like people who worked in video stores back when we had video stores really were exposed to the best of the best. It was like living at a film school with a film library.
Yeah, people who worked with me are just I knew just one kid who also loved like movies and loved to talk about films, but we didn't really study film. We just watched them, and we had our own opinions about them, which changed from time to time. And we would I would get anything that I could, that was available there. Nothing was always available. Um, but whatever I could get my hands on, I would take it. I would take home and watch it, and then I would discuss it with a friend. But it's a Blockbuster store, so they don't have many things. They have some things, but they were more focused on the most recent, the most recent films. And but that was a start, definitely. That was the moment when I started to understand about what cinema can do. Not just besides
Yeah, besides
entertain.
passive entertainment, it can be more.
Yeah, besides entertainment. Yeah,
Yeah. And so I think I was asking like was so it struck you after your experience making that documentary and working on it.
yeah.
It struck you that like the best venue for your thoughts was science fiction.
Yes, yes. I thought, like I said, I was already interested in sci-fi, but I didn't really thought of actually making my first fiction film a sci-fi film because I know it could be expensive. I'm not gonna. It's an expensive venture to. So I didn't actually thought of making my first film a sci-fi film, but after the documentary, I was, I think I'm going to do that. I'm going to make a sci-fi film. I have a lot of references, of sci-fi movies that I love. One of my favorite films of all time is 2001, um, and of course Blade Runner. And it kind of grew from the idea grew from there because next year the whole discussion of the metaverse started and people were talking about it, and I started to read about it, and I thought, oh my God, it's gonna get worse. And I started to bring those information, those discussions towards my universe. I was to bring them to my universe, and I started to build it. How the government's going to be, how the social, how the institutions, how they're going to um how they're going to manage society, and what they're going to be their interests, and how it's going to be, the tissues of society, how they're going to articulate. And that's it. And I've created a whole world, and most of it is not in the film. Most of that world is still, there's a lot of things that I couldn't really put in the film, but hopefully someday I can, I think once I think the feature film will be more, I think will be less of a complex film, will be more, straightforward narrative. And I think people will understand it a little bit better. What the difference between each reality and each character, because there is something that happens in this film that a lot of characters, they are the same character, but they are represented differently in each world. And some people got a little confused with that, but that was the idea, because it is confusing when you see something when you see a person in real life and you see a person and on social media, sometimes it is confusing because it's not the same person.
I suppose, yeah. I don't know. I mean, I can tell you I understood it, but
Yeah, yeah. A lot of people did. Usually, sci-fi fans usually get it because they're used to that dynamic. They're used to that sort of. They're used to the pace. They're used to the complexity of those films.
and we're used
They're
to
used to
people
the
looking one way in a real world and then entering a virtual world and having an avatar that
yeah,
represents them.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So usually I usually get praises from people who like sci-fi movies, who are sci-fi movie fans.
It's a big community, so it's not
Yeah,
like.
it's a big community. Yeah.
And so you wrote out the whole feature and then you decided, at what point did you decide, okay, I'm going to make a 20 to 30 minute I guess
Yeah, I thought
concept, right? It was truly proof of concept.
yeah, it is a proof of concept. I thought I started to write thinking I was going to be able to create like I'm going to write a short film, but then I got carried away. I started to write. Um, my plan was to make a short film, a short sci-fi film, but then I started to develop the whole environment, and the environment was getting more and more and more and more complex, and now, you know, and then when I started when I decided to place a story inside within that environment, inside of that environment, I realized, okay, that's, I'm not going to be able to explore all of that world. I'm going to have to grab a little bit of it, and I'm going to have to take a little bit of that, and I'm going to set the story right here in that little part of that huge universe. And then I started, and then it started, and then I started to write, and as I was writing, I kept thinking to myself, okay, I can't just end right here, but I could go on. I can. I think I can. I can go on, because there's a lot of things that I could explore because I already have developed the whole universe. So there are a lot of things that I could explore in it, and I saw those things as opportunities. So I just decided I just write it. Just gonna write it until just gonna write away and see what I can come up with. And then in the end, it ended up being a feature. But then I cannot, I couldn't afford, to finance a feature film. So I thought, okay, now I'm going to create a concept of that. And that's what Nauru is. I mean, it's sort of a little segment of that feature.
I was going to ask, is it a single segment or did you pull parts out of the act?
Yeah, it's kind of a part of it, I would say.
Because it feels like a very complete story.
Yeah. But it's sort of it's a sort of a subplot to a more complex narrative.
Got it. Right. So you pulled, I guess, I don't know, people talk about story A and story B, but so you pulled the subplot out and said, okay, I'll tell this, because then you can make a short, or in our festival, we call it featurette because it's over 20 minutes, but
yes.
But that way you could have a film that had its true beginning, middle, and end and completed a story and satisfied your audience instead of, Lord knows sometimes there's a proof of concept that just like, okay, it's a little bit of act one. Let's hope that people want to see more.
Yeah, it's a part of a subplot. It's a part of two subplots actually. So it's a little bit. It's not a whole subplot. It's part of it. It's part of two subplots that I was able to merge together. Because there's the whole thing, the whole questioning that goes on in the film. That that Miriam gets through, she's being questioned. She's being put on a spot by the government because they feel like she betrayed them. So that's the part of that I try to merge into the film, and that's the part of that would be another part of that would be another subplot in the feature. That's actually a subplot in the short film. So that's why I thought that's a bit complex for a short film. It's a big short film.
It is, but it's worthy of it.
Yeah, and that's how it is.
All right. Well, on the more technical, practical side, so you took the feature script and then you wrote this version that you could,
Yeah.
and you wrote it specifically with a budget in mind, or with what people.
I had a budget in mind.
Yeah.
No, I had a budget in mind, but of course I went over it.
Hard not to, especially in sci-fi.
Yeah, that's the risk of creating a sci-fi story is that,
But
a
it's
lot
also
of it the effects that I wanted to put in the film, but it was worth it. It was cool.
yeah, and actually that's certainly something. I mean, it is a visually stunning film. It's just beautiful to
And
look.
just say one thing, it served because that's my second film, so it served as a huge experience for me. I mean, there's no college or film course or film school in this world that will give you that much experience that you have when you make a film. When you make a film, it's like going through a intense course. Like I've never learned so much about filmmaking as I did when I made this film. Because now I had to deal, because I did my first documentary basically by myself and other two people. It was me and my wife and sound person, and that's it. Now I had to manage like a 50 plus crew, so, and plus cast. So it was a bit of a challenge, but it was that gave me a lot of experience, because now I feel more secure going to another project, if it's gonna be a feature or not. But it gave me a lot of security, and now I know what it's like to step on a film set as a director.
Yeah, I mean that was a courageous decision, because not everyone starts with a 50 person for the first narrative.
No.
But I have to say that it's even more impressive to me because it came out so well. So the Lord knows it. It's not. I mean, sometimes people are on their third or fourth film, they do something and the ambition doesn't pay off. So the fact that your film came out so well and is so visually stunning and the story is so tight and good. I mean, it's I mean, you're referring to it sort of like as almost it was an educational process, but it doesn't look like it.
Yeah, that's what it was. It was like that movie was my graduation. I didn't have
your thesis.
I didn't have a graduation project in college. I had to participate in another project, in another film project, so I could graduate, so I could get my diploma. So I didn't get to develop my own project in college, and now I did. So that was my course graduation.
Yeah, like they say, it's like it's your thesis film in a way.
That was my thesis film. Yeah. That was my thesis film.
Excellent. And was it I gotta ask, was it stressful, or was it highly rewarding throughout, or was it a mix of both?
We had we did 7 days of shooting, and the last day was a bit stressful because everyone was tired, and there was the most difficult shooting because we shot the last scene at a beach. There's a scene that happens at a beach, and shooting at a beach in Brazil was very, very difficult. And that was and a sky had to be on a certain color palette because we need this, because we were using the sky as a chroma, for the planets to, so we need to shoot in a certain time frame. And so everything had to, I had just that day, that was the last day. And I had like 20 minutes to shoot like 4 takes during the blue hour. That was the time frame that I had, between the sun comes up, and between the night go, it's the time between when the sun is almost there, so that the sky gets purple. The sun is almost rising. It's like 5 a.m. something in Brazil. So yeah, that was a very stressful day, very difficult, but we went through that. I think everything else was fine. I tend to be very organized on the set. I do I do a lot of storyboarding, so I just come up. I just that's what we're gonna do. I discuss everything with everything with everyone, with my DP, with the production designer. So I try to make my thought as clear as it can be for them, and that was it. Everything was smooth except for the last day. Everything went smooth.
But you accomplished it. Yeah, it might have been,
Yeah, yeah.
you knew you had a small window, and I know that is the magic hour of it's funny, I'm really into astronomy and astrophysics, and so I've listened to these podcasts and lectures about it. And yeah, the fact that twilight is where the sun has not risen or has not
Yeah.
set, or it's finished setting, but its light is being reflected through the atmosphere for us in a way that's truly most beautiful.
It is, and the sun, when the sun hasn't risen, the sky gets to be, and it gets a very unique color, which is almost a violet. It's a bluish violet, and that's what we wanted to shoot. We want that bluish violet color in the sky, so you could place the planet. So we had just, and that's just a 20-minute, window that you have if you're going to shoot that. So we had to do all the four takes within that 20 minutes. But I think it made it. It made it to the film, so it was worth it.
Absolutely. And then, well, I would assume from what I watched, it cut all your footage cut together so well because it's a wonderful edit. Was it? Am I right that you got everything you needed and it was actually a really pleasant post experience?
Yeah, I got everything I needed, and if I shared it, it's exactly how I wrote it. I've edited it exactly. I didn't change much. I went through 6 or 7 cuts, but they were all with minor adjustments. They were all with minor adjustments, and yeah, it was very. It was surprisingly planned. I'm not very organized person. I'm a bit of chaotic person in my personal life. So
it is, the two projects you've told me about are certainly opposites. One was almost no plan. I'm just going to go shoot people. I'm just going to see what's out there and point my camera at people and talk to them.
They were completely different.
And this was every moment on screen is planned from
everything
final
from scratch. Yeah, everything planned, every shot, every light, everything. And that's how you do when you have no budget. You cannot really afford to do many takes, so you have to plan everything.
Yeah, you do. You do. It's
I wish I could have more budget so I could kind of step, step aside to try something, try some other things, on a set. But I didn't have the time to do those things. I had to stick with you know, with the plan.
and you obviously made it while you were still in Brazil,
Yes,
and so it was made. Well, I imagine it was made throughout 2022.
yes, it was made in. I shot in February 20. Yeah,
Right.
February.
So
Yeah.
so really in the at that point we had the vaccine and things. So I was in a way the film got
Yeah,
to.
yeah, yeah. We had some safety measures in the set, in the film set. People were wearing masks and everything, but everyone was already vaccine with already was yeah with a vaccine.
I mean, there's a very specific period of time we live through. I just want to say how much I appreciate that there's no hint of COVID in the film. I know whenever I saw films and people said, "Oh, let's include the masks on screen," you watch it, it's like it's not going to hold up over time, right? So, but also you were creating a completely separate world. So, how did it? Actually, I'm just curious. How long did it take from start to finish? Was it full year? It
I
sounds
was
like, or?
yeah, if we are from shooting to post production to the end of post production. Yeah, I started shooting in February and it was released in September. Not it's 8 months. Is that 8 months or something? Yeah. The writing process took longer actually because it was it was the whole 2021 basically.
Right. So you spent a full year writing it,
Yeah.
and then actually, yeah, the writing should. Well, if you the writing should take longer, right? Because the writing is if that script comes out and everything is so well thought out, then making the film is a lot easier because the that screenplay is the blueprint.
Yes. Yes. And like I said, I wrote a feature film, so it took a lot of time,
Yeah.
and then I adapted
And
to
were you still in Brazil when it was done?
Yes, I moved to London last year. I was September last year. So yeah.
So did you have a nice? Did you get to
Oh, so,
have a good screening? A couple great screenings at Brazilian festivals, or
I didn't. Yes, I when I Nauru was released in September, so I got to. And I started to send them out to film festivals in the beginning of the year, in the beginning of 2023. So I got my first screening when I was already here, so I couldn't go to. I got my first official selection. I was in London. I couldn't go back to Brazil because I was moving actually. I was in the middle of the whole chaotic process of moving from one country to another. It's crazy. I had to bring my dog. That's yeah. But I had a couple of screenings in Brazil, but
excellent. You
but
could be there.
I couldn't be there. But
Have you not gotten to see it in a theater yet?
someday I hope, but I didn't get to.
I got to tell you, I shouldn't even mention this, but oh my goodness, a couple years ago there was a gentleman who nearly started Film Invasion London with us. If only we had a Film Invasion London, we could have screened it, and you could have been there.
Oh my God, yeah, yeah. I've tried a couple of festivals here, but I didn't get selected. But that's fine.
It is
I
what.
want I want I want to see it in a big screen. Yeah, but I've seen it. I've seen it in your streaming streaming platforms and other stuff like that. So I'm happy, and I know people over there. They saw it and they were happy with it. They were happy with the result. So
Yeah, does it resonate? I mean, I assume it resonates with everyone, but does it hit particularly well in Brazil?
yes, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. Although honestly, if it doesn't resonate with someone, I'm going to be judgmental and say, well, that's just because they're out of touch. They're
Oh,
letting
yeah, some
they
people
might
some
they
people
might
do struggle to get their heads around some of the particular aspects of the film, but that's usually people who are more used to sci-fi films and sci-fi films and series. They tend to be more um more receptive.
for sure. Well, so what are you planning next? Do you have and I are you thinking about more shorts? Are you thinking about another, or are you thinking of the
I'm
Nauru
writing a
feature?
I'm writing a feature film to be shot in Brazil, um, hopefully next year, and a short film to be shot here in London, hopefully next year too. Let me, that all depends on on financing and the whole development process. But I was hoping to shoot something next year.
Excellent, excellent. And so it was a good experience, and
Yes,
you feel you're even deeper into the world of indie filmmaking.
yes, I am.
I
I
love hearing that. I confess that when I see a film that I think shows so much talent and so much promise, and every now and then someone comes on this podcast and goes, "Yeah, this one I poured my heart into it. I'm done." And I'm like, "Oh no, you shouldn't be done. You look at the work you made." But
no, I'm not done at all. I just
yeah,
I want to
excellent.
move. Well, I take some people get really disappointed because their films don't make it to big festivals, and sometimes it happens, and we shouldn't beat ourselves because of that. Film festivals are big film festivals. They're just they're not. You can use them as a reference. When you're a filmmaker, especially if you're first film, especially if you're an indie filmmaker, especially if you don't have any big names and you like big movie stars and names at the industry. But we have to. The only way you can, I think, from my perspective, and the only way you can be successful in this business is if you move forward. If you just okay, my first one didn't, it didn't go so good. Just move to the next one and try to get the next one done, and try to, and that's how you get experience, and that's how you get to know people, and that's how you start to understand how things work, how people think, you know.
And
But I understand the disappointment because some people are really disappointing in this business. Some film executives, okay, they can be a drag, but we have to understand how to deal with them.
very much, very much. And the last question I should ask is so the things that you are planning, the one in London, the one in Brazil, different
Yes.
genres?
Yeah. The one I'm planning to do in Brazil is going to be an action film, set in the present time, so not going to be a sci-fi film. Um, and the one that I'm planning to shoot here is it's also an action film, but it's an action hero kind of story. It's sort of a it's going to be called. I mean, so far, it's called Moto Boy. You know what Moto Boy is? It's a delivery man. It's a delivery. It's a guy who works on a motorcycle delivering. And because most Brazilians who live In United Kingdom, they are delivery boys. They work in deliveries, and I decided to create a hero who does that. To come up with a story about a hero who does the deliveries, and one day he gets his motorcycle stolen. So he gets to go after the people who stole it. And it's a series of unfortunate events.
That is that is a classic genre, the series of unfortunate events. But I mean, it's and makes me
Yeah.
think of a few Scorsese films that are like that. But also it's as I think I had a I forget who said it. I think it actually might have been a screenwriting professor or someone like that once said. I heard them say that happy people have no story.
Yeah.
Right? It's the struggle and it's the hurdles in life that actually have story. If everything's going fine, you don't have any conflict.
I'm thinking of genre because I'm thinking of action film, but most films are actually they're hybrid. They're a combination of different genres, right? Talking about Nauru is a sci-fi, but it's an action film too. It's an action film. It has
It's
a lot
action,
of
it's fantasy, it's
fantasy, sci-fi. So yeah, and that's kind of a both movies are both of these new films that I'm writing. They're both political dramas in a way, but they're also action. I have embodied because I'm very keen into genre films, so I tend to do that what I'm writing. Even when I'm talking, if I'm writing about, even if when I'm writing you know, um, political drama, the action thing just flows. Just the action, the thriller, just it kind of. I'm not going to drift apart from that. You know, and
yeah.
it's funny how they're receptive to genre here in UK. They're not as receptive in Brazil. You know, when you speak with film, with film executives and distributors and people from the local market. They want horror films, they want sci-fi films. It's very different from Brazil. They don't really care about genres. They care about political dramas and mostly.
Interesting. So in Brazil there's more focus on social justice and politics, whereas
Yes,
whereas
yes.
and certainly the UK and definitely the USA, some people some people almost actively discourage it, which I mean I'm not a fan of discouraging it.
Yes, they do. Yes, it's not that they discourage it, but they like, um, you know, they rather, they tell you specifically that, they rather buy a horror film than a drama. They say they have a lot of dramas. We have a lot of dramas already. There's a lot of drama on streaming, on television. We want something fresh. We want sci-fi. We want horror film. We want thriller. We want a psycho thriller. We want those kind of things. That's their interest here, which is great for me because that's what I like to write. But in Brazil, I kind of struggle to talk about these because that genre is seen as something American. Like you're a Brazilian filmmaker. Why are you writing genre films? Why are you writing sci-fi films? Let them do sci-fi films. You're not going to be as good as them writing sci-fi.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, I mean, boy, I personally disagree.
Yeah, no,
I think you proved that a sci-fi film based in Brazil can exceed and honestly bring something much fresher to the genre than tends to happen in the USA, but you know, you're I suppose in a way you're I don't know if the term I should use is breaking rules, but you're challenging the system in a way.
Yeah, I'm not. I don't know if I'm challenging the system. I'm just doing what I want.
Yeah. True, true. You're just being true to your vision.
Yeah, I'm not gonna, not gonna do something I'm not, yeah, I'm not gonna do something that's not, I don't really have that much. Uh, I don't know if I would know to make it just a political, just a pure drama, just a pure political drama. I don't know if I would know how to do something like that, or pull something like, you know, like Judah and the Black Messiah, something like that. I don't know if I would able to do something like that. It's a great film, by the way. I'm not criticizing it. Just don't know if I would be able to write it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, no, I mean that's every filmmaker should focus
Yeah,
on what
I think my
what they
strength
care about.
relies on. I think my strength relies on on genre as a writer.
Absolutely, and it's important to know who you are as a creative person.
Sure. Yeah.
Well, I should ask you, if someone wanted to learn more about Nauru, is there a website or social media they should follow or something like that?
Mm. Well, is it still in Film Invasion, by the way? Is it still in is it streaming still?
No, we only do that for
For like for
yeah,
a couple
yeah. It's only
weeks, if
during
I'm
the
not
festival,
mistaken.
actually. If you're looking to get it out, there's other things we can talk about like that. But yeah, no, Film Invasion was just for I believe 2 weeks. It was
Yeah,
online.
yeah, I'm still there's a couple of film festivals yet to be you know to, they're still to happen, but after that, not I'm not sure. After that, I'm not sure if you know I'm gonna see the possibilities. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah. You should.
streaming. It could be on streaming. Could be maybe in Brazil, maybe in a TV channel. And that's in Brazil. No, no. If I could get some distribution in here, here in Europe or in United States, I can talk to you if you know some, if you know anyone might interested in distributing Nauru in United States. That could be good. That could be something. But in Brazil, I'm still looking the possibilities. There are a couple of festivals that didn't happen yet. That Nauru will be on, so they're gonna happen, and then I'm gonna talk to some people and see what they're if they prefer to put on streaming or not, or putting on television. I don't know, but that's in Brazil. That's in Brazil. Outside of Brazil, I'm not really sure.
Yeah, Lord knows it is. It's a challenging length, right? 25-ish minutes. People aren't used to distributing
It's
that.
difficult. It's difficult. This 25 minute sci-fi is difficult for film festivals, and yeah, I know that.
Yeah, I know it's a challenge.
I've been advised several times. Don't make more than 20 minutes, please. Okay.
Well, I know our festival's a little different. We don't care if it's we care about
Yes,
quality,
that's
not
great.
length,
Great. That's great.
but
Yeah.
we try to live in our own little idealistic world. What can we do? But then I am aware that the post festival world it gets even more challenging when you know I mean I can at least it's really good and really visual and a genre like sci-fi that I do think platforms would respond to because I can tell you like I've talked to we've done some things with shorts where we've put stuff to, put a bunch of shorts together and then promoted as a series and things. And one of the AVOD platforms, when we talked to them, they said, "Oh, well, how much of it is horror? Is it all horror?" And I was like, well, out of 100+ films, 4 of them are horror. And they were like, "No, sorry, come back to us if you have all horror." And I was like, there are films other than horror. There are.
Yeah.
And trust me, people like them. People want to see them, but I know there's at the distribution level, people get very genre focused and they just create rules that they live by, even if they probably don't hold water that well.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a problem. But
I shouldn't even bring that up, but Lord knows it's always a challenge to get art to people.
Yes.
Always. But art has value. That's all I can say. Art has value.
That's great. That's great to hear. No, that's
all right. Well, should I wrap us up? Anyone? Is there anyone that you should that you want to give a shout out to or thank you to?
No.
Yeah,
I mean, of course, thank you and thank your film festival, Film Invasion, for considering us, for selecting us, and on behalf of the whole crew, we want to thank you and everyone who's involved with Film Invasion. And hopefully, my next project, my next film will be on Film Invasion too. I will send them gladly to you. And
make sure you get the alumni code from me so you get a good discount, because whenever alumni come back, we're like, we love having you back.
Okay.
Although I shouldn't say it out loud yet, I'll tell you when we get off. But all right, well, I will ramble off the things I name at the end of a podcast. I'll do it a little quick, but I'll thank everyone for listening. I had Tôka with me, who made the film Nauru that took home 5 awards at Film Invasion Los Angeles back in 2024. If you want to learn more about this podcast or that TV series that I talked about that was born from it, just go to discoverindiefilm.com, and on social media it's at DIFwins. Film Invasion Los Angeles that we hold every June. You can learn more about that one at filminvasionla.com, and it's at filminvasionla on social media. And I shouldn't say this, but it looks, for years, like I mentioned the Film Invasion London thing, it looks like we might be getting a Film Invasion Peru.
Wow.
Lima. So I'm crossing my fingers.
Yep.
All it takes is 1 or 2 good people who want to be loyal to the ethos of quality over everything else and just support the filmmakers and filmmakers first. So I think someone came to me and I was like, this is I'll help you. So anyway, I'm putting it out into the universe that this may be the first. There's also actually a city in the United States that has approached us. But I think it's a little more exciting to have a second festival in South America. But anyway.
Right.
So that's Film Invasion. It has a sister festival, actually, the Sherman Oaks Film Festival we hold every December. And that one you can learn about at ShermanOaksFF.com, and it's at ShermanOaksFF on social media. And the last thing to mention to people is check out a website called indiechannel.tv, or it's a smart TV app if you have one of those TVs that has apps on it. Excuse me. Man, I managed to mute every other cough, but I didn't manage to mute that one. Oh well, I'm just getting over a cold. So check out the Indie Channel if you get a chance. Tôka, thank you so much.
Thank you. Merry Christmas.
Yeah, yeah, it's all right. We are talking Christmas Eve. It's cool. It's almost, it's 7 p.m., 7:23 p.m. in London. So I imagine when we get off of this chat, you're going to do a little celebrating.
Yeah. I'm going to have my first beer right after that.
Excellent. Excellent. For me, I got to wait a little longer, but all right. Well, thank you, Tôka, and thank you, everyone, for listening.
Thank you very much.